So, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the VFX Nomads podcast. It's been a couple months. We have been pretty busy, and unfortunately, G couldn't be here with us today. It's pretty late for him. We're doing a late session.
Life. He's out there having a life.
He's having a life. He's having a nap, a sleep in Japan. So there's been a lot of things that have been happening in the industry and in general with all of us. I guess I would just like to know what you guys have been up to first. So I'll start with Josh. Josh, what have you been up to? You've been leading any shows? You've been working on anything on the side? What have you been up to last couple of months?
Yeah. So obviously, other than stealing and remaking Adrian's tools on the side and asking permission, I've been. So what happened? So this week I started on a new show. I don't know if I can say what it is, but it's a pretty cool one. I'm leading 100 and something shots on a sequence, which is pretty nice. And it's quite a juicy show, which is pretty good. It's a nice one to tick off the bucket list. And then before that, I was leading. We had kind of like a 2-month project. Again, I don't know if I can say what it is.
That's okay.
And it was kind of like fairly simple comp work, I'd say, but I needed it after Dune Prophecy, which was kind of crazy, and it was very like lots and lots of work, and it was pretty intense. It was quite nice just like doing a simple show with some simple stuff in the background, and it was like kind of period drama kind of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's been good. It's been really good.
Nice. Tell us a bit about the Dune Prophecy. It was a big show for ILP, right?
Well, yeah. So we did think 400 or 500 shots actually.
Wow, that's a big show. Yeah.
And then there were 3 leads or 4 leads. And then I was on the agony sequence. So
because it was so agonizing?
Well, we were joking about that. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was kind of like lots of. Basically, it's very dark and there's flashing lights everywhere. So it's kind of like Lila had the blue poison in her eye, and then she goes into this kind of the stuff where she's seeing all these ancestors and things like this. So a lot of it was kind of designing the flashes and things like that in comp. So we were designing a whole bunch of that, which is a nightmare because it's like, okay, do we care about consistency here? Like if that light's flashing on our screen right in the next shot, do we care about the one on the left?
Yeah.
So no, it was really good. And luckily I had a really good like bunch of compers helping with that. So yeah,
we worked on Foundation Season 2 at Trickster, and we had a similar kind of sequence where one of the main characters, Gal, is having like a premonition flashback or something, and the room starts like spinning, and like the room starts turning. It's like she's going back in time or something, and there's lots of flashes, but it needed to be like ramping up through a series of shots, and like
exactly.
And that was the challenge of like, what's happening, how does it ramp up, all this stuff. And we had like a lot of creative freedom to do that, and it was pretty fun in the end.
As a lead, right, it's like, right, I need to watch this in the edit, because you're right, like the flashing lights were supposed to be kind of reminiscent of a like heartbeat, I guess you could say, as it goes through. So yeah, it was a lot of like, wow, I really need to look at this in the edit and make sure it all works and all this kind of thing. But it was really good, but I had to be really on the ball with that thing. So no, it's good.
Sounds challenging. Yeah.
How's everything with you, man? How are you doing, Tony?
For me, I also started a new show. I probably can't mention it at the moment. We started in January, and it's nice to be, on like the kind of planning phases of a show and like planning the workflows and stuff. And it's a pretty big show. I think it's probably also like 300 or 400 shots in the end, or I could be wrong about that, but
you guys have got to 300 shots ish.
I think something like that. But it's pretty cool. I'm excited about it. I can't say what it is, but it's got me like really excited as like a kid or something. I'm like, that's really cool. So see, that's been really nice, and we're kind of in the like setup stage, as I said. There's a lot of like theorizing about workflows and stuff that we're sort of exploring, and we can talk about it about multi-shot workflows if you want to say, but let's save that for a little bit after. So that's what I've been up to, starting a new show. And so Adrian, what have you been doing? I know whenever Adrian is quiet for more than a month, I figure he's like making Nuke 2.0 or something.
Yeah, Adrian's been redesigning the whole VFX workflow and pipeline.
Remember back in the time when we used to record podcast episodes, and I was doing a home renovation, so I'm still doing that. So
nice. Okay, so did you decide the height of your TV now, Adrian? Have you set the height of your TV?
Yes. So
is it perfect?
So in the end, we didn't manage to add a fireplace, which was not great news, but it was great news for the TV height. So yeah,
now you get a fire on the TV, and it's basically the same thing.
Exactly, and that allows to have a bigger TV. No, so I mean, I I've just had like a few months of hardcore developing, actually, just with all sorts of random things. But
yeah, is there anything that you'd like to tease? Anything that you'd like to say to anybody?
Before you tease, do you enjoy that? Like, is it nice going from kind of like supervising a show to kind of headphones on, maybe developing? Like, do you like the mix, or like how's it been? Have you enjoyed the last few months doing that stuff?
Yes. So the thing is, I really love supervising shows, but lately I was just doing Google Meet stuff and Excel sheets and calls with clients. So I was more on the management part, and I really do not enjoy that too much. And yeah, just creating something that feels great again. And yeah, so I mean, lots of what I'm doing now is just looking at everything that's coming up, generative AI wise, and seeing what's usable, what's easy to implement, and trying to get things that can be used in the project. So that's kind of a big part of what I'm doing. But
I've got a question for both of you guys about kind of this thing, because Adrian, you do a lot of like technical stuff where you go like coding and stuff, and I guess you could consider that like the hands-on work, but also you teach and you are like a people person in that sense that you like to work with teams and stuff. Is this like an ebb and flow thing where sometimes you like to be on like the team side, but sometimes you just like to be in your cave, like, you know, coding stuff? Or same with question to you, Josh, like, did you have like these moments, or do you prefer one over the other?
How about you, Adrian?
For me, like the people part, that's kind of forced, meaning I cannot get to choose when to do it and when not to do it. So that has to be like, I have to adapt to that part, let's say.
The Spanish government's holding a gun to your head to teach all these students.
No, I mean,
yeah. Where's my compass, Adrian? Where's my compass?
Produce more VFX artists.
Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of like have a certain like schedule of classes, like on Thursdays and something like that part I do not get to change too much, so I have to adapt to that. But on the other side, like even in Orca, like the kind of work that I do does change. So basically, I try to plan for the weeks to have the most time that I can for myself. And when I say myself, I mean the company, but like introverted kind of work. And I mean, we've discussed that in the past, I think, but like I tend to have like one mission that absorbs everything in my being and my brain, and that lasts for some months, X number of months, and it starts at some point to be like something that I want to get rid of, but I need to finish it. So that's kind of how things work, and it's like really, really focused for 5 months, whatever it takes to finish that, and then back to not knowing what to do with life and just doing the usual work and working with the teams.
But Adrian, a question on that. Do you ever find it frustrating? Because like obviously I code a tiny bit compared to you, like barely anything. And I made this like tool in Blink script, and I go back to it now, I'm like, fuck, I don't understand what any of this does. Like, do you find it frustrating? Because obviously, like, if you're really in the zone right now on a thing, you know maybe all the problems and you've been Googling stuff, and then you go back to it and you're like, crap, I need to get up to speed again so I can update this thing.
Yeah, that's really annoying. Even with a week or like just 10 days or something like that, and I get back to it, and like the first hour is like, oh man, why do I have to learn?
What was I doing?
Yes, but yeah, that's a big one. And that's why I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, Josh, for you, I guess. I mean, I think you do less of like the tool building. You have been doing some tool building, but I guess my question for you would be like the shot work. If you're leading a sequence and maybe you're doing too much of the people management and stuff like that, do you ever miss the shot work? Because sometimes I miss the shot work. So question about that.
No, definitely. I mean, I think it depends. Like each show, as you know, well, you guys know, like you kind of maybe play a different role, especially as a lead. Like maybe sometimes you'll be doing more of the shot work and setting a look, and then other times it'll be like, okay, I don't like 100 shots. Okay, I don't have time to do a shot. Maybe I do one, just when I get an idea of what the comps in my team are kind of receiving in terms of light groups and AOVs. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I need to be more like jumping on calls and giving people feedback very quickly and this kind of thing. So I like Adrian, I guess. I think I'm a little bit more extroverted than Adrian, like a little bit. So I think to be honest with you, what's been really nice, I've started a new show this week, and the shots are quite cool, and I've got 3 or 4 shots. There's only 2 people in my team at the moment because it's quite early on. So I've actually got the time to like really, really do so, and I'm really enjoying it. Like, it's like, I miss these days of like, fuck yeah, I can like design some stuff and all this stuff. So I think, again, ebbs and flows. I enjoy each part. But I think I do definitely find that on Dune, I think I was missing doing a cool shot and having the time to really polish. So yeah, I think it's hard to find a balance in regards to that. So, yeah. How about you, man? How about you?
Yeah, what's your phase now?
Well, it's beginning. So there's a lot of planning. So I'm doing a lot of like templating and stuff. And you can only do templating when the renders come. So the renders come and then you make a template. And sometimes the renders don't come all at once. So you're kind of like waiting. And I was doing, we're actually working on a trailer at the moment. I'm doing a trailer shot, which is good because it's not like, it's a trailer shot that's somewhat complicated, has a lot of elements in it, which is good because then you start to see what you have from CG. You get to do multiple kind of templates and see kind of what the look is. The downside of that is I'm kind of just doing that, and sometimes it takes away from other things that a lead should be doing, like taking care of stuff. So it's kind of once you're in it, you're kind of stuck in it. But that'll be done soon. Do you find,
actually, out of interest, because obviously not everyone who watches this maybe are in the industry and things, like, do you think that the look will change? Like, are you kind of hacking something together just for the trailer?
It changes every day.
Yeah, of course. But are you like hacking something together? Obviously, you're comping very clean, but
that's a great question. So I mean, this is a really great question. So, and you know, the deadline was super tight, and you know, the client wants to see something, of course, and it's a trailer, so it's, you know, right away. And everyone knows out there, or they should know, that trailers don't have to be perfect. They're a bit loose, and then when you get the feature version of the same shot, usually looks different. It might be completely redone or whatever. So there's a lot of things that like you cannot do properly. You just can't do it because you have like a key, for example, and they say, you say, how much time, when do you want to see the shot? And you say, I want to see the shot this afternoon. And you're like, okay, well, I don't have time to key this properly. So that's when you should use like a temp key, or that's when you should just do something smashing stuff together. Now, there is a moment, and it happened on my shot actually, where I said, can I have a day to clean all this up? And I spent half a day or a full day basically like cleaning everything up, making a very nice, it was a mess, and I was embarrassed. Somebody went into the script to like pull out some template, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But you know, now I can say that it's the same shot, and you know, you delete all the bullshit that didn't work, clean everything up, proper labels and everything, and all these like modules and templates start to form. And now the script is very clean and everything's pre-comped and everything. So now the changes are just rolling, right? They give me some notes. I'm like, cool, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Now those notes can create mini messes, but for the most part, it's, you know, very clean. And then, but you have to work fast. And when it's fast, you know, you don't have time to make the script look as nice as it can, unless, you know, during the day that you're waiting for the notes to come back, then you can ask like, hey, do you mind if I stop for a bit and like not produce a version so I can refine everything? And then usually that's answer's yes. Because
and when you're getting versions out, are you doing multiple versions, do you find, to kind of like
sometimes,
because obviously the speed you got to do it's quite quick, so you do multiple versions of things, or
like wedges and stuff, right?
Yeah,
we usually send some versions, and sometimes I'll do my own version of stuff with like, oh, I thought this was a bit better, or you know, it's what my preference was, and you know that. But you need to be able to work in that kind of way, which is a great segment to Nuke 16 that just got released. And one of the features that they've been pushing quite a lot is the multi-shot workflow. I'm not using Nuke 16. I don't know anything about this so far. But one of the things that I thought of was, instead of like multi-shot, it would be great for stuff like look dev, because you could set up some variables, and you could have like, maybe you're doing a commercial that needs different like signs for languages or something, and you're like swapping the same shot but with different elements. And I thought, oh, that's a cool introduction to a way that not multiple shots, but like multiple wedges of the same shot. I thought, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, what do you guys
do that a little bit with switch nodes? Like every now and then I'll do like a switch node at the bottom. Like generally for defocus as well, I'll have a defocus node at the bottom that's like the main defocus, and then expression link it up and stuff like that as well. Yeah. So I don't know, I guess it's kind of like that. I haven't used the multi-shot. I think there was like a video, right, that you guys watched.
Yeah, this multi-shot introduction thing. Well, I guess my question to you guys is, okay, the new it's very fresh. I think it came out in the last couple of weeks. What's your impression of Nuke 16? I know they have some like new Blink script stuff. They've done some roto improvements and but they're really pushing the multi-shot workflow. So I guess from a lead point of view or a supervisor point of view, yeah, what do you think about that? What's your take on it? Are you happy about it or no?
Adrian, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I can start, probably. So, by the way, Tony, when you were referring to cleaning up scripts, I love the term that you used on your video, like the
refactoring.
Refactoring, yeah. It's quite satisfying to use that word, right?
I love refactoring, yes.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Yeah. Sorry, going back to the question. So, multi-shot workflows. So, I mean, there's studios that for years have implemented their own way of doing multi-shot workflows with either live groups or proprietary whatever. There's many attempts that I think we've discussed that in the past, that different studios made through the years to try to get like auto comping or procedural comping in some way.
Yeah.
I feel that like the same with stereo shots. Like let's say when you work on a native stereo shot, both eyes are pretty much the same thing, same elements. There's like most of the things that will change between the eyes is just the exposition and maybe some gain, maybe something like there's like very, very minor changes that generally are happening between eyes. And even so, like you still need to sometimes just like split and join. For me, that seems like a quite contained case for multiple outputs, same node graph. Probably for animation, animation like animation films, there might be sequences where like you have that kind of controlled environment where several shots are literally the same thing, same render, same elements, like, and the variability between them is really contained as well. Like for me, that's like a pretty powerful and obvious case for multi-shot workflows. I feel that for live action, at least in my experience, there's so many ways that stuff can get out of hand anyway, like any place in the comp, that the price of containing the chaos might not be worth it quite quickly. And for me, that takes me to like other kinds of examples. But that's my first impression with this, is like, it's quite possible that chaos, like you might need to do different things in many places. And you are generally comping in a way that allows for changes anywhere. So yeah, I mean, it's for sure powerful. I just don't know how much it can be like a native way of working for large sequences or VFX live action sequences. That's just first impressions.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could have hacked the stereo setup, right? Left, right eye to do this.
People have been, People have been doing that.
Yeah. Which is kind of a cool way of doing it. I mean, for me, I think there's something to bear in mind with the Foundry. And I remember talking to their marketing team about this one point, because we were going to do some stuff together. And I kind of said, like, okay, who's your target market here, right? Like, making a video of me is not going to get ILM to buy more Nuke licenses, right? Like, who are you marketing to? So what I mean by this is, if you think about like most of these new things, like for instance, Trickster aren't going to buy more licenses because of maybe an update in Nuke, right? They're kind of going to keep the same amount, right? If that makes sense. So for me, I think you've got to bear in mind that they're trying to grow their market share, and their market share is what other people are doing, right? Like After Effects. Okay, what are the people in After Effects? How could we tempt them to move to Nuke or another bit of software? So I think, as Adrian said, maybe for us, I mean, who knows, right? Like, we don't want to change our ways. Maybe we're cantankerous kind of seniors and soups and stuff like that who don't want to change our ways. And I think there might be some really cool tricks that you can do with this, and it's going to be interesting to see how people creatively kind of hack it and to do things. Yeah. But I think for me, it's always been the case of, for the Foundry anyway, again, I'm putting words into their mouth here, but they're maybe thinking, okay, who else could use this tool, and what could we do to encourage them to use it, if that makes sense. And by the way, the marketing thing that I really wanted to do with the Foundry was, this marketing person just started at the Foundry, and they were trying to come up with ideas. And I said, the best marketing would be, I teach you comp live, because then it shows that you care about the people, right? And you want to understand what they're doing. And it'd be great for everyone to follow along and watch this marketing person kind of learn Nuke comp live as well. So unfortunately, they weren't.
Put them on the spot, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Right, let's do a key. But I think it would have been really cool. But anyway, I think with the mode shot stuff, I see every now and then a really cool use case of live groups. Like on there was a really good lead comp who used it on Willow, and they were doing like star nebula stuff. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like the star field should be the same. So okay, that makes sense to do this live group. You input the camera of your shot, and then like that makes a lot of sense to me. You have to be careful, but I think again the mode shot thing, I'm not sold on it yet. I think it's a cool idea, but like Adrian said, I think it could get very messy very quickly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I like what you're saying about the marketing. I mean, I probably view it as, I'm guessing that they got a lot of pressure from some bigger studios that wanted them to kind of open up Nuke a little bit to help facilitate their workflows that were already there. Like maybe they were just missing like, oh, you know what would be great? Script variables, and then we can just continue on, our giant pipeline and stuff. And so I feel like I don't know if it's specifically, it's more like opening doors like Blink Script did. Yeah, exactly. Than it is like delivered. Oh, here, if you use Nuke today, you're going to be able to do multi-shot tomorrow. Obviously, these workflows need to be kind of worked out, and I think that's the interesting part. Is what you guys are saying. Like everybody has a different take on this, and we're going to see workflows emerging. From what I saw, it wasn't stuff that I'm too excited about, honestly. But only because I feel like it should go in a slightly different direction than what they have been doing. I think it's a good first step. But I think I was talking to Adrian about this, about everything seems to be like live group oriented. And I think live group just has proved not to be the best way to hide a bunch of stuff in your comp. I would much rather see like versionable backdrops that are modules in your script. And so right now, if you take the multi-shot workflow, what you're stuck with is one script that exports many shots. And that's one single script, and that's the entire script. What I would rather see is like a template system, like a live group, but instead of in a group, something that you can change. And imagine that it's a live backdrop. And then when you go to edit it, so now it's editable, and only one of your modules in your script is now custom to that single shot. So you could have like 80% of your script that is a global script across many shots. When you update one, it updates all of them. But then in those select shots, 20%, 40% of your script is then open modules that you're adjusting. And the key is that they're not inside the live group, because it's such a pain in the ass to open it up to like, oh, now I need a roto, but now I need to make a new input. Now it doesn't have multiple outputs.
It's kind of the same as a pre-comp from another script, right? And reading it in, it's like, oh fuck, this starts getting really messy now finding the script. And
yes. So I would like to see like backdrops that are live and updatable. And so, okay, you open up a script and it says, this is the global backdrop. It's like a certain color or something. And now you click editable and it shows you like, it turns the red or something. And it's like, I am no longer the global asset of this thing, and I can edit it for that specific shot. And I think that leans more into, you have a script per shot, which eventually I really do think, unless you're working on a feature animation, I really do think at the end of the day, when it comes to tech check and stuff, every shot is a unique snowflake, especially if it's film. So it's going to need at some point to be an individual script where you're doing custom paint roto crap. Or just a cut, the director or something's like, hey, I want a random ramp on this side of the screen doing something. And it's like, okay, now it's separate from the rest of them. So yeah, that's my kind of take on it. I think it's an interesting step. It's cool that the discussion's out there, but I think it could go in a different way that I would be looking more forward to that. But
I mean, we might be getting Chris Weatherly on the next podcast, right? So we can
Inception.
Win us over, Chris. Do the sales pitch. It's I mean, I think, again, we need to see it in the wild, right? And chances are we're not going to be using that thing for the next year and a half. Maybe, I don't know, Adrian might use it sooner, but we don't touch that for like a year and a half, basically, right?
Yeah.
In the industry, because it ends up breaking a bunch of stuff. So
I think the smaller the team, too, again, going back to your marketing points, the smaller the team, like, imagine you're just one person. They already have like Nuke Studio, right? Which is almost something like that, but... Imagine you're one or two people and you can separate the shots that way. Yeah, it makes sense for you to have everything in one script and you're doing a bunch of shots. So I think the smaller the team, the more sense it makes. The bigger the team, logistically with scheduling and like, okay, now there's 10 shots and one person has to do all 10 of those shots. And like scheduling wise, it's also kind of like up to production to even schedule the whole show like that. It starts to get into these weird zones.
I mean, I hadn't thought about what you said actually, which is when I was in ads, the big thing that the moneymaker with tagging, and it's exactly what you said. Like, we've made the advert. Okay, let's swap the legals at the bottom to Spanish, and we change the label and stuff like that. Like, now I think about it, this is perfect for that, right?
It's
like
perfect.
This is literally perfect.
I mean, there's commercials where like you have a car that's gold and blue and red, and depending on the country, it's got this plate and that plate. I mean, we used to do commercials for like all this stuff, and the car commercials when you have to do that, and yeah, it's exactly like that. Or wedges, I could imagine it being pretty good for wedges. You don't have to duplicate scripts around and stuff like that, but.
That's cool. It'd be interesting to see how it goes, for sure.
Yeah,
like the more similar the shots are between them, or like to me it feels like it's perfect for stuff where you don't have like 8,000 node shots. That's VFX mostly, but like there's many places where a script is like done in a day or less than a day, and or like green screen shots that are in a specific sequence, and you get the artist to iterate quite fast on that. Like there's many occasions where 5 shots for one artist is completely feasible, but that's not what happens with hero shots or or large sequences with environments, like that's probably not the ideal use case for it.
Yeah, or even like the lighting department who needs to just show their slap comp and they already have a scene in like Katana or whatever, and that's the same scene, so naturally it would be the same Nuke script that would also ingest all the shots and stuff that they're just showing stuff. So for certain departments like effects or lighting, it makes sense to have like everything in one script. You can export all the shots at once because it's essentially how they render stuff as well when it's all part of the same scene. So it kind of makes more sense for that stuff that's a little bit more automated.
Or animation where you get like 5 shots that are exactly the same, like literally every render layer. So
yes,
maybe that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
what other new features are there, by the way?
There's
interest. Like what were the other features?
Performance of roto that has gone up. I don't know who's rotoing in Nuke still, but I mean I do for my own shots. But
that's $8,000 a license just for the roto, man. It's the most expensive roto.
I mean, Adrian might be interested in the Blink script stuff that they've kind of improved. I guess they improved, what is it, the documentation and some of the functions, and they've
So basically everything that I tried to improve on NovScript in order to make less of a pain of Blink script experience, like now it's amazing, I think. And they have like this test, like when you mess it up with Blink script, you can like crash the whole thing and then you lose the code and everything. So they made it so that happens a lot less.
That's good.
Yeah.
Adrian, talk about how annoying it is that they changed the QT and that all your tools broke.
I was going to ask you that.
Are you happy that everybody in the world wants you to fix stamps right away?
No, but I'm quite happy that they did it after the release of ChatGPT 03, because that made it a lot smoother for myself. So,
have you used Grok at all, Adrian? Have you used Grok yet?
No,
I think it's better. Grok's better for me personally for
Is
coding stuff. Yeah. It's really good.
A lot more.
You're not on the DeepSeek.
It's I was thinking the other day, I need to make a course called How to Code Like Adrian with the Brains of Josh Parks. It's Adrian code like Adrian Poirot with the brains of Josh Parks. And it's just me googling shit or like typing stuff into ChatGPT and Grok.
You're just gonna feed ChatGPT all Adrian scripts and use this as reference.
You are Adrian Poirot, and I need a tool that does this. But honestly, Grok's it's really good, man. Like it's well worth trying with this stuff.
Is it a standalone app or is it a website? Because I thought it was kind of like built into like Twitter or X or something.
So you gotta be signed up to X and stuff like that.
Okay, I wasn't sure if they made like a standalone website.
I think they are gonna be making a standalone app. But I found it to be better. Are you still finding ChatGPT to be the better one, Adrian, to use for this stuff?
Like it's the only one I'm using, but like the 03 mini high, they call it model. It's amazing. Like it's so good at coding. Like you can give it like 400 lines of Python and tell it to do something, and it'll give them back to you like many times.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And when you were doing so recently, obviously you've been in this, maybe the land of like, this might be the first time you're big into your developer world. 2 months using chat. How are you using it? Are you first of all like spitting at your idea and it's giving you something back, or are you kind of knocking something up first and then piping in? Like, what's your use case of it and how do you use it?
So I have different types of chats open at the same time. Gotcha. So I have like the deep chat where the smart model is like thinking it through, and I don't want to give it too much garbage, like the silly questions and how do I make something, or like the silly questions I open like a non-reasoning model, like a 4.0 or something on the side. But then I have like the proper chat that is like aware of the context. There's this feature called projects now, which is similar to a GPT, like you just upload. So I would give it like, let's say I'm uploading stamps. So updated stamps. I would give it like the PDF for the documentation is like, I'm updating this tool to this version of Nuke. It has this problem. And it's able basically to anytime just look at the internet and find answers and then reason through the thing and then give me the correct answer. I'm surprised at how much it's like, just nailing it on Python stuff at the first try. Like it's so good, especially for like refactoring or documenting things. Like it can go like 300 lines in one go, and then you can give it 300 more lines, and that's what I'm using it for mostly.
I've had a lot of experience with this as well over the last couple of months because I was doing some workflows that required me to write some own tools, and if you know the logic of what you're trying to do, and you're just like, basically there comes to some point where you can basically tell it exactly what you want to do very specifically, and it would probably be faster to just tell it than it would be to try to like code it yourself. I know that sounds kind of dumb, but like, it's like, okay, that would be me testing a bunch of stuff, but like, I know the steps, and you go like, I want you to do this, and then select everything. And then after that, I want you to do this. And, you know, and then it just like spits out the code for you, test it in Nuke. And like, if it's stuff that's self-contained in like individual buttons, for example, like Python buttons in the Nuke tool, then it's really handy for stuff like that. Or if you get stuck, so you're writing it and you get stuck, and you're like, this isn't working, can you tell me why? Or you get an error, so the terminal spits out an error and you can't figure it out yourself. You say, this code, put in the code, got me this error. Is there something wrong? And it says like, oh, on this line you messed up this function or something. So there's been a lot of this kind of stuff. I would never just tell it to do like, hey, here's the entire project that I wanted to do, and it, like, it's gonna spit it out. But like, it's for you know, when you're getting stuck and when you can't like logic your way out, or maybe it knows a faster way to do something than you're used to, and you can kind of learn that new way. But yeah, it obviously it still does the ghosting. It does that a lot. It does like what do they call it? The hallucination answers, where it doesn't actually work. It does that quite a bit, but a lot of times it actually gives you correct things that you didn't know.
Sometimes I found it gets the Python version wrong as well, which can be annoying. I was trying out some stuff with OpenBDB and Nuke, and it was like, oh crap, like I've got this far and then it's the Python version's wrong, and it's like, oh man, okay, I gotta go back now. So
yeah.
I mean, if you're not super technical as well, I think it's so if you're not if you've never done Python scripting before as well, I would have loved this when I was starting out. Like I was reading this kid's book on Python. I can't remember what it was called now. That kind of got me going, and I was going on Nukepedia and downloading Python scripts and going through and making a note and trying to figure out what each thing does. But I think actually I would encourage people just to like try and make a tool. Just, you don't have to understand what it's doing. Just ask ChatGPT or Grok just like to make a tool. Just come up with anything, like a small thing. I want a button that pops up, and when I click it, it makes grade notes. Okay, great. Because that'll get you just like the itch of like, right, I did this thing, and when I click it, it does something I wanted. And then you can ask it questions of how it worked, if that makes sense. Because I think a lot of people, they kind of learn things in isolation of having a reason to learn them, right? And that's the thing. Like I think actually you want to kind of have something you're trying to make, and then you end up finding all these issues and learning it along the way, basically.
Definitely. And I would do steps at a time. Like Josh, you're making me laugh a little bit, because there was some Reddit thread that I think people were talking about one of Adrian's tools. I know, but I think it was about stamps or something. I don't know, but one of the answers, and maybe this guy was a troll, was, oh, why do you need one of Adrian's tools? You can just use ChatGPT to make Adrian's tool. And I was just sitting there thinking, imagine if you could just say, I want a great DSpell tool, and it just gives you AP DSpell. Like, but it could never, I don't think it would ever be able to do that. So I think limit it to like actual steps of things. Like, no, don't just be like, I want an amazing lens flare tool that's going to blow the socks off my Supervision.
The thing is, having a basic understanding of Python is super important, I think. Like, I could probably get to the point that Adrian got to by just asking Grok or ChatGPT, but it would be fucking frustrating and take me ages, because I wouldn't know. Maybe it's just an easy fix and I've just got to change something, right? Or like a bracket, but I wouldn't know that because I've got no background and foundations on that stuff, if that makes sense. So I do think that it's really advantageous if you do have like the foundations at least, in regards to this, because it just means you can kind of go, oh look, you're making a stupid mistake here, or like a hallucination, as you said, Tony.
The way that I look at it is that it still needs to be your logic, like the same as that you would set a Nuke script a certain way, and then like, okay, maybe part of the Nuke script is a module that has changed or something, and that's okay because the whole structure is the same. If you just tell it to make a Nuke script, maybe it's comping upside down or something like that, and you'd be like, oh, I would never do that. So I think having small sections that you know, I wasn't able to figure this part out, and this one particular part is like the ChatGPT part, but the logic of my Python code is still standing. And so, because at the end of the day, you need to be able to understand yourself if you want to make any change, or else you become a slave to always needing to, no, there's a problem, I need to feed it back to itself because I have no idea how it's working, you know?
Exactly. I mean, I am looking forward to the days, though, where I can upload a Nuke script, because obviously it's just a text file, right? And you can say, right, make all of the lines dead straight and 90-degree angles and stuff like that. And it just kicks you back there, paste, right, done. Yeah, okay, great. It's all cleaned up. We're good to go.
We have interns for that. We can
exactly.
Oh, that's a great point, actually. Like, yeah, like when the whatever LLM gives you a code, you must be able to read it and understand what it's doing. I don't want to spend like 20 minutes looking for what's the JSON function to read the file and save it correctly. Like ChatGPT will probably do a good suggestion on that, but then I have to read it and know that it's correct, and I can quickly check that. Like an example of basically a concrete example of what I'm using it for. Let's say I'm reading through folders and looking for all the JSON files and building a dropdown in Nuke, something quite simple. At some point, I'm like, well, it would be nice to have subfolders and then have a cascading pull down. So it's like, ChatGPT, here's my code with which I'm reading a folder and saving it in a dropdown. Can you make it so that now it's cascading and it's looking through subfolders? It's like, yeah, of course. Here's the code. It's correct. Okay, it's working. And that's kind of what I'm using it for, like really modularized things and not trying to go too far with designing or planning, because that's not what it's meant for. But
Adrian, are you allowed to talk about any of the stuff you've been developing? Is there going to be a new load of AP tools? Or
I mean, a big thing, as I was saying, is I'm trying to connect like Nuke to ComfyUI. That's kind of one of the main things I'm doing at the moment. For now, it's mostly in-house things that I'm building. I hope at some point I can open source something. That would be amazing, because I feel like there's some value in there, and I think again, not wanting to always talk about generative AI, but I think a big part of the tools that we use will be relying on that very soon, and we want it or not. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty powerful, I think, and will be.
I mean, something I really loved about your idea, and that kind of inspired me again to have a go at doing something similar myself, is that, again, like, people don't necessarily need access to those ComfyUI stuff. I mean, I love how we've just been like talking about how we don't really like live groups because they're kind of pre-comp. So now we're like, don't let anyone touch the ComfyUI node graph. Like, just have these. But it's a clever idea, and some, again, I think so far that people have kind of brought ComfyUI nodes into Nuke and this kind of thing. But I hadn't ever thought of. I mean, you're the one who came up with the idea of like, okay, the artist doesn't actually have to. You could have the ComfyUI setup done, and all they've got to do is give it the prompts. Like, what actual things do they need, if that makes sense? So. Yeah, such a cool idea, man.
So for me, like the difference between multishot workflows and this, I treat ComfyUI as a gizmo, as a Nuke gizmo. So you don't necessarily need to know what's happening inside the gizmo. You need to know that this thing is going to give you a dispill, and probably it's going to fix your edges or do some glow or something. Like for me, like we have such a powerful compositing environment in Nuke that it's completely stupid to try to do any of that in ComfyUI or somewhere else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, even the complex ComfyUI workflows that you see online, like, it can be simplified for me as 2 or 3 gizmos most times. It's like, okay, here you're segmenting something and detecting the face. For me, that's a gizmo. In all the section, you are doing like an image to image. That's one gizmo for me. So why not just save that in a gizmo, and then in Nuke you just have 2 gizmos, like the segment and the image to image, and that's it.
I really like this idea that what you just said is like, okay, why are we rebuilding the node graph when the node graph and the workflows are pretty set in stone, and maybe they'll change, but you can just update the node graph, but you just hide it in a group, right? Because then you can only expose the most common attributes, and then you adjust them, and you have your inputs, and then it spits out a result the same as any other gizmo in Nuke. It's a super elegant way to put it, actually.
Well, and also, you could have a tick. You could have a tick box as well, right? That just disables a bunch of nodes in ComfyUI as well, like, and they just updates the JSON file and stuff like this. So
it's literally a gizmo. So, yeah, exactly. Like, we've done it in Nuke forever. Like anything that we don't need to repeat again and again, we just save it in a group and create a gizmo out of it. The only thing that we use outside of gizmos, let's say AOV rebuild template. That's not a gizmo for me. That's something where you really need to change things on the inside, and there's no way you can expose all of that in a properties panel. So that's why you need that to be flat and not nested. But anything that can be set as a structure doesn't make sense to leave it open to the artist, and for me that makes it so much much more complicated. So
yeah, as if you're only adjusting like 2 or 3 aspects of everything, like okay, you're changing the model, you're changing the mask input, you're changing all the settings, that how it mixes, whatever, and then that's it. And then okay, so I have my knobs, and then I have a result after that.
Yeah, and if you think like of a really as I was saying, like, if you think of a really complex ComfyUI workflow, I'm not that pro at ComfyUI anyway, but like, let's say you have a flux image generation where you have like one control net plus another control net plus some LoRa plus blah, blah, blah. So, most times it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4 stages, and then each of them can be either an input of a gizmo with 4 or 5 controls. Like, it's not as complex as an AOV rebuild happens in Nuke. So,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, and you set the size in the empty latent space slight size, and it's pretty easy to set your canvas. I mean, out of interest, then I guess the other cool thing as well that could happen one day is that I reckon production houses will license these models, right? Potentially. So then you could basically make that, right, this person has shot it into the show, so therefore we're only going to allow them to pick from these models that have been licensed by Netflix, which is kind of cool. So it kind of means that people can kind of fuck up less, I guess, in terms of these legalities when that all gets worked out, obviously. It's such a cool idea, man. It's such a cool idea.
Yeah, I love these kind of new grounds where as soon as you said it, I was like, that makes so much sense. But before that, I had never heard it. And to me, that's like magical. It's like, oh man, it's like these new workflows that are emerging.
I mean, something I was messaging Adrian about, I think it's okay to bring up. Like, so one of my ideas in regards to like taking on Adrian's idea of, right, the artist doesn't have to have access to this, is in your element browser. So let's say you've got like your stock footage browser, right? Okay, I can't find the perfect stock footage. So maybe you have a go to ComfyUI stock footage, right? And it basically takes what you search for in your stock footage library, muzzle flash, and you go, right, okay, actually, you know what? I want ComfyUI to kick out 20 muzzle flash stock elements for me. And you could do that just by the hit of a button in your stock footage library. And it'd be pretty sick. So you could do all this kind of stuff integrated without the artist knowing, right?
Yeah, I think that there's so many things there. I mean, I think we all probably are slightly against the idea of just AI generating your comp completely from scratch.
Yeah.
But the idea of AI generating like specific elements that are going into your comp, I am much more interested in that. Like, I think it was Compositing Academy, Alex Hanneman. He was like giving an example on Twitter or something, which was a bunch of waterfalls that he had generated. Yeah. And it was like waterfalls over black. And I was like, wow, that's such a cool idea. And they were like moving and stuff. And I was like, that's just an interesting use case. And you could, if they're far in the background and they're just part of a bigger comp, it's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Or mist.
I've been doing it with lens state, man. You take a lens state element the client likes and you don't want it to match another shot. So you do an image to video and it just moves all the bokeh shapes around a little bit. And like, okay, great. Like, there you go. It's a similar lens state.
That's
it's just
awesome.
Like, so there's all of this kind of stuff that, again, I think the thing to bear in mind is it's going to be a tool, right? Like, imagine that ComfyUI or not ComfyUI, but the AI was so good that you could generate any image, it'd be photoreal no matter what you searched. And that's just Google Images right now. So you can already do that and people are still employed. So you're going to need people to be able to edit the stuff that's coming out of it. It's just another way to create stock elements or it's just another way to do this.
Like, I just see it as a synthetic asset generator.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
It. Like a way of bringing assets for yourself to then do something with them.
Yeah.
But I don't see how it can be otherwise.
By the way, I got one other cool story. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
There's a guy I was speaking to recently who he was trying to make he was trying to improve AI keying, matte generation. And what he was doing is he was generating Houdini renders with fine hair details and then inputting, training on the renders of that because he wanted lots of fine hair. So he was generating that because you had an amazing alpha, right, given the hair details. So I think that's another thing. I think I can see VFX being used to basically create data sets going forwards as well for all these models. It's a really, really good use case for it because they're easy to tag as well. That's the other huge advantage if you generate some of this. So, yeah, man, it's exciting.
So yeah, I guess we have to talk about some big industry news. But yeah, there was a recent closing of the Technicolor group, which is a huge group of thousands of people. I think it was, I don't know, the numbers range from like 4,000 to 10,000, depending on if you're talking about the VFX division or the entire company. But it's definitely the biggest thing that's ever happened as far as a closing in my career. The biggest thing since then was Rhythm and Hues for me, I guess. I was in Los Angeles when Rhythm and Hues closed, and I had to look it up, but it was about 256 people or something in Rhythm and Hues, and I believe it was only one office. If they had another office, it wasn't too big, I don't believe. But this is truly like a global closing, and I don't think I've ever seen something that they give an announcement on Friday and basically told people not to show up on Monday, which is pretty... As extreme as it gets, I think.
Towards the end of the month, by the way.
And towards the end of the month.
The most fucked up thing is no one got paid basically for that month. Like, just to say one, like no one got paid basically for that month. Basically,
that is a very, very common thing to happen when companies go bankrupt. Basically, the way that it works is they pay everyone who they're afraid of first. So all the people that they owe money to, and lawyers and stuff. And usually the artists get the last. So they don't have any money left, they don't get paid. This is very common. It is very sad, of course.
Yeah, it's crazy. Imagine expecting a paycheck on Monday and you don't have a job and you don't get paid. Like,
and you have to pay rent the next day. Yeah,
that's it's screwed up, man.
Yes. So have we all worked at MPC actually?
I mean, actually, just quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm friends with a guy who was a comp soup there, and I've know the guy who was head of comp in London. And I think I can only speak for London, by the way. I don't know what MPC was like, or Micros, or the other kind of Technicolor companies, but their comp team wasn't huge. I think it was like 6 or 7 people, if that makes sense. So it wasn't massive, if that makes sense. So, and actually, to be honest with you, a fair few of those people already found new roles and things, which is great. But I think I think this has been going this way for a long time, right? Like, I think it's been expected. Obviously, it sucks, but like everyone kind of has been expecting this to happen at some point. To be honest with you, I don't think it surprised anyone. It just sucked, basically.
Yeah. I think you're saying that there was a downwards trend. I guess there's, one could say that maybe they were moving things offshore, or like closing one office and another office.
Could be that. Yeah.
The whole global thing kind of imploding at once. Definitely, I've never seen anything like that at that scale before. That's like I was saying the numbers before, of like 260 people or so. If you do like the math, it's like 20 times worse than that. Like, obviously, you can't really put a multiplier on it, but it's really big. And the market is already flooded with people that are looking for work, and it's just very sad to see more people that are now back in the job search and stuff. So, apologies to anybody that happened to, and I hope you find work.
I mean, I think the other thing with this though is there are still the same amount of shots in existence that need to be worked on, if that makes sense. So, like, you could argue that still the same amount of artists need to be employed in the industry, even with NPC going down, because those like, for instance, like other companies right now are bidding on those shots that NPC had, basically.
Yeah, I think they were working on Snow White. They were finishing up on that. I think they were working on Mission Impossible, and they had another movie. I don't remember.
I can't say what, but they had a
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think they were working on. I heard a few people saying what project they were going on, but yeah, naturally it has to go to someone else to finish them, I guess.
Yeah. So you could argue that, okay, those shots will go. Now again, it sucks, but like those shots will go to another company, and therefore that company will need to hire artists to get the shots done. You could argue, right?
I see what you're saying. Like somebody else gets the work, or potentially even the same people might transfer somewhere else to finish the work.
Potentially. I mean, the people I think actually that it's the trickiest for. Again, it sucks. I remember being at NPC ads in COVID, and 80% of us got made redundant. I was okay for like 6 months to a year. I had savings, but like it still sucked, and it's scary, and you don't know where you're going to end up, and like you're comfortable, you know everyone, and this kind of stuff. But I think the people it sucks for most are like the heads of department and things like this, because if you think about it, how many heads of department roles are there in a company? One. So you can't just move into those kind of roles fairly quickly, right? And same with VFX supervisors. Whereas if you're a comper, at least it's like, okay, companies just hire compers when needed and shrink them, if that makes sense. So I think it's now, again, it sucks for everyone, but it's going to be harder for those people who are in very, very senior positions that maybe there's one per company. Because if there's less VFX companies in existence, less of those roles exist. But if there's 10 VFX companies for these 5, if there's the same amount of work, again, you could argue that you need the same amount of compers no matter what.
Yeah,
so
yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
Have we all worked at MPC?
Adrian, me and Adrian worked on The Martian together.
Yeah, I worked in the Vancouver office in 2013, just for a few months. But I'd never worked in London. But you guys kind of started it, right?
Adrian, was that you started on The Martian, right?
That was my first show in MPC. Yeah.
Nice.
So I actually started in local companies here in Madrid. Like the comp team in my previous company was like 2 people. So you can imagine me arriving in MPC and seeing like the keying templates. I was quite scared of opening those shots, and
I can say that I enjoy the people that I worked with in Vancouver. It was many years ago, but I did also learn a lot. I was pretty green when I went there, and they had a lot of wiki pages and very smart people that worked with them. And the project I was working on I think it was like Fast and Furious, and so I was like painting motion blur artifacts out of it. But I did learn just on myself just asking people that had harder shots than that. I learned a lot. And it was a big stepping stone, of course, I think, for every one of us. Like,
I mean, they gave me my start, basically. I was on Com Academy. That was my first ever role.
You have a lot of people a big start. I mean, they were brave to hire, I guess, juniors. That was kind of their model of like hire a lot of people right out of school. And then as people kind of went up to senior, it would kind of be this, they call it the revolving door, right?
I don't know, man. That wasn't the model when I was there, me and Adrian, I'd say. There weren't a whole ton of juniors when we were there, I don't think. I think it was, and that's the thing. That's why I'm not overly sentimental. But obviously, like, again, they gave me my career, but it was a very different company, but the one that closed, V's the one I started at. And I think that, so the thing is with, because Jellyfish have obviously closed as well, which sucks as well. I think from what I've heard, from quite high up people, is basically these companies were just took on some debt to try and grow very quickly after the COVID boom, and it just pulled the life out of them, the writer's strike, because they took on a ton of debt. They tried to grow as quick as possible, so when things contracted, they still owed all that money, and it just basically caught up with them. So I think sometimes you have to, again, and these are ebbs and flows of the industry, right? Like ILP, we're bigger than we've ever really been at the moment because we're hiring up in London. Again, I can only speak for London, but we've got Rise now, we've got Pixamundo, and these companies weren't in London when I started in the industry, right? So you've got certain companies coming up and certain companies coming down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the way that it goes, right? Like companies rise and fall like empires in history or something. It's, have all these different ebbs and flows of things. I
mean, I'd be interested to know how many jobs there are in the world that VFX, right? Because it, like it's maybe a bit doom and gloom, but like I'd be interested to know if there's maybe more jobs in the world for VFX. Like, is it a steady line up and to the right, or are there actually less VFX jobs in existence right now?
That's an interesting question. Or more than ever, but just lower paid, or like the pricing point is not as expensive as it might have been in 2010.
Yeah, because Australia, right? Like there's ILM, they're huge right now, and DNEG's over there and things like that. So there might still be loads of jobs. It's just in the UK right now it kind of sucks.
Shifting to different parts of the world.
Precisely.
Projects. I think certainly there's less bigger projects than there have been in the last few years. Although I've heard stories that, for example, the studios in the UK are ramping up and everything. I've heard a lot of stories that it might ramp up. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of wonder about all these bigger companies that are consolidating. They're kind of eating up all of the smaller mid-sized houses, and then like MPC and Technicolor kind of like fell apart. So I don't know if that says anything about the business model or anything, but it's hard to tell because it's just one example. But like maybe mid-sized companies are gonna start coming back. Like you get rid of one giant, smaller companies replace them. I'm not sure. It could be, but those people have to go somewhere, and sometimes they start throwing companies like they did in New York with, what is it called? I can't remember the name. Arc?
Yeah. Which is actually owned by the Dream Machine, who bought ILP as well. And the investor there is really cool. He's actually really, really nice. But another thing as well, actually, there's a podcast, a Tim Ferriss podcast with two guys from Weta Workshop, not VFX. And it's worth listening to because they were saying like nowadays their revenue is like only 30% Hollywood. Right. So like it used to be like, right, okay, the big films were like our main income, but nowadays only 30%. And then it's kind of like streaming services or experiences, right? Like you look at ILM, they're doing the ABBA thing, right? Which they maybe wouldn't have done before. So I think it's turbulent times in the industry in terms of what projects you work on, who your client is, workflows and all this stuff. And I think it's just going to be a bit of a turbulent time. It's not going to be as kind of like, this is the way we've always done it, and these are our clients, and this kind of thing.
Yeah, I will say that I have hopes that it's a low point, and that it was the same in 2013 when Rhythm and Hughes, that was like unspeakable back then. Like it was crazy. They just won an Oscar, and company went out of business the next day. And there's just ebbs and flows, and it shifts, goes to this location, goes to that location. New projects come. There's a huge wave of successful films or streaming services. But we just don't know, I guess is the point.
We don't know what the project's going to be. We don't know who our clients are going to be. Exactly. I reckon at some point, by the way, like how high-end film people used to kind of be a bit snooty about episodic stuff, TV shows, I think it's going to be, I reckon you're going to have YouTubers soon going to ILM for their VFX, personally. I think that's going to be something.
I watched an amazing video, and maybe I can share it in the links or something. It was a guy talking at like one of these South by Southwest conferences or something about this very topic, about content creators kind of paving the way to new, like Hollywood is very rigid, a lot of rules. The quality is very high, but in a world where people care less about the quality and more about like quantity and just telling a story, not at the highest thresholds of quality, but like just generally speaking, they can push them out faster. He was saying like this is like a more generalized workflows,
Multi-shot.
multi-shot work. Yeah. I've been saying something to my team that I think is quite important. I think if we want to compete nowadays, you need to do more work with fewer people. I think I think everyone needs to start getting that in. How can I do more with fewer? I think we should all try to do that, I guess. That's where it's going.
Here's one thing I'm thinking. So for sure, there's a lot more content being created like for other markets or like markets both thinking about like YouTube and social media and like Asia, like there's so many other markets, right? But even in the film market, let's say the high quality, you need the best quality. There's more and more indie films getting done. That tendency is for sure happening. And there's like a big thing. So most films, like the amount of VFX they have is minor. So maybe there's like 10 million for a movie, not 300 million, let's say 10 million. And maybe that movie has like 1 million for VFX to make it simple. Stuff in a film is done the way that it's cheaper. And VFX is generally not the cheapest way to do stuff. That's why we only do a very small percentage of things. But what if, let's say, our speed of matting or of tracking a camera, of fixing edges, like what if our cost of doing all of that became 10 times cheaper? Okay, maybe then you could argue that like for a big sequence in a film, you could just not build a set and just shoot with the actors on the outside, and then you would just replace all of those backgrounds in VFX. So there's like so much more stuff that would flow into VFX like the moment that it becomes cheaper. And that would still expect like the highest quality. So if you know what I mean. So you would still need compers in that environment. You would just have super compers that have more tools to work faster and cheaper. But like in the end, you need to be able to judge final quality. So I'm just saying like there's so much more opportunity for stuff to flow into VFX now that it's just not done because it's a lot more expensive than just shooting it.
I think we have to say one thing, which is that I do think it is going towards that content creator kind of work, like let's say a movie that gets released on YouTube or something like that. The problem is with some of that stuff is that their budgets are so low that you would need so many of those projects to feed. Like one Hollywood film is like 30 of those or something like that. So there would never be enough of those to fuel whatever MPC needed to continue working. So by nature, like there needs to be a new model, maybe smaller, more compact teams, smaller companies that are catered towards those new content.
I mean, so last year I kind of experienced that a tiny bit. So because of the nature of the industry last year, ILP took on kind of smaller, shorter jobs basically. So it was like, right, 2 months on projects. And that was it. I think I delivered like 5 or 6 shows basically just in a year. Because it was like, right, like, okay, you got 2 months on this. Okay, because it was just kind of like, right, what little sequences can we do, if that makes sense? So yeah, it's good. I experienced it and it's a bit tiring. It's more like similar, closer to ads, I'd say. Obviously the quality was higher, but yeah, it's that kind of mentality.
Yeah. It's a learning curve for sure.
But it's interesting what Adrian said though, right? Like Adrian's point, which is a really good one, is like the budget of a film is higher than the VFX budget. So Adrian's thing is maybe we get more market share of the budget, right? Basically, like the market share kind of shifts to VFX, and yeah, which is an interesting point, I guess. Do you think that will? Because obviously the people on set are going to be not so happy about that, right? And you could argue that certain things are kind of maybe done in a certain way to appease people on set to make them feel a bit more like we're not going to kind of just change everything in post, if that makes sense. So what do you think needs to change? What do you think is the thing that would need to change to move more stuff into VFX, Adrian?
So I think now this is a very similar conversation to virtual production. It's like just the shifting of things around in the pipeline to produce the same image, right? So I don't know. I think it needs to be organically driven in some way, so that slowly more and more things like, I don't know, like I'm just thinking there's things that for sure are a waste of money, but that's the only way to do films at the moment. And I'm just not talking about VFX or like Roto or all of that, but in the set, there's so much money wasted in things. Yeah. And 1 million euros for VFX is a lot. 1 million euros for a film is nothing.
It's nothing, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this stuff. Again, I'm gonna reference this video of this guy talking about this content merge. But one of them that we've probably all heard about at least is the Mr. Beast games thing. Like, if he was in Hollywood and he was doing this Mr. Beast Squid Game type shit, it would cost so much money. You'd have all these actors, you'd have all this productions and everything. The guy did it. I don't know where he was, Missouri or something. Who knows where he was? But he filmed it, his own stuff. It probably way cheaper, and it was hugely successful.
Does it look? I haven't seen it. Does it look?
The thing is, it doesn't matter how good it looks. It matters that it was successful in terms of viewers and ad revenue and all that stuff, right? So even if it was 10 times less profitable, it was probably 10 times less expensive to make, if that makes any sense. And it still had VFX and it still had all this stuff, and even just talking about on-set type of things. So. When people kind of bend, like, if you don't have to go through the rigid Hollywood, you have to do this working hours and this stuff, all those things are set up for a reason, but they're very expensive. And it's one of the reasons they don't shoot a lot of stuff in Hollywood anymore. It's one of the reasons why VFX is not employed in Hollywood anymore, is that they go to other places where there's a little bit more relaxing laws. You can kind of get around things, maybe some fewer regulations and such. If that's where it's going, you need to also adapt your VFX to be cheaper to match, like, okay, the production was cheaper, the actors were cheaper, the location was cheaper. It's just a natural thing.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, actually, going back a little bit to that, it just reminded me of Metaphysics AI, right? Which is that UK company that did a ton of like deep fake stuff. That's again another company that didn't exist, that's employed a bunch of people. So there are companies kind of coming up as certain ones are closing. But yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. Again, I remember there was we had a meeting recently, kind of some people in the industry to advise kind of universities here in the UK, and the head of ComfyUI was kind of saying like people need to kind of be a bit more prepped. We don't know if that makes sense. Like they need to be a bit more generalisty potentially, like and be able to take on a whole shot or something like this. So it kind of very much comes down to what we're kind of saying now, which is like, again, maybe you're going to have these smaller teams that can take on and tackle bigger stuff, if that makes sense. The leverage is going to be higher per artist, right? Like the leverage is going to be higher because of the tools at artists' disposal.
Yeah, there's something to mention there about at the moment, companies in the past, when there was a huge boom, there was a lot of juniors being hired. And right now they want to be safe. They want to make sure that the people that they're hiring know what they're doing and everything. There's going to be less jobs for the time being for juniors, because all the seniors are sitting there waiting for work too. And if you're a company and you need a surefire, like I need somebody who knows what they're doing, you're going to go for the senior first. Or maybe you don't have the time to train new people, or there's other new people that are already in the market. It's a scary time to be learning VFX at the moment. But I don't want to discourage anybody, because again, we don't know where it's going to go. Like tomorrow there could be some new surge of streaming service that we've never heard of.
Tony as well. Like when I started the industry, if I wanted to work on anything actually half decent, I had to work for NPC, DNEG, CineSite, and that was it. That was the only company, and Framestore. That was it in London. Other than that, okay, that's it. Whereas nowadays in London, in the UK, and same around the world, there's so many VFX houses now working on the cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I completely agree with. I mean, it's always been tricky, but at least nowadays, you don't have to, like, again, the only reason I got a job at NPC, I got to work on the cool stuff, because I got one of two positions that they did every 6 months to a year. If you didn't get that, okay, that's
Absolutely.
it, if that makes sense. So I still think it's easier than 12 years ago or 13 years ago to work on something you actually want to work on.
So I think the thing is expectations, probably. Like,
exactly.
If you want to learn compositing by reading a book and learning what buttons to press, that's not what the industry will require of you, that's for sure. But not even of us. Like, and I'm seeing so much like of this negativity. Not sure if that's a word, but online about like just universities being completely pointless right now for VFX and being like a huge waste of money and time. Again, I'm quite aligned with what you just said, Josh, about that. Like, I as you know, I'm directing a master's in compositing, and I'm teaching every week, and we really have that conversation every single week at the start of each class. Like, where's stuff going? Is it even worth it to keep learning what we're learning? And I'm like, so here's my point of view. So I am not teaching what button to press in Nuke. I'm not teaching what Nuke is even. Like, we use Nuke because that's like the tool that gives us the most. explicit way of seeing the notes and procedural, and you're learning the fundamentals. And for me, like, whatever comes, I am sure whoever runs the tools that are needed to do that work will need to know fundamentals of image, of color science, displays, motion, contrast, lighting,
storytelling in an image,
yes,
getting something to look where you want.
Yeah, and it will be quite useful to understand what keying is, what edges are, what alphas are, what combining things are. Like all of those concepts that you learn, or thinking in nodal workflows. Or there's so many things that you learn as compositors in this specific case that will be super needed, even if we don't use anything similar to what we're using right now. So it's like, if you expect to just learn Nuke and use Nuke and just follow the instructions, that's probably not an industry for you. You need to be open to learning, but that's always been like that. So,
but one thing I would say on that is the quicker that our pipe, like for instance, if our pipelines shift, let's say, so we start, we're using Gaussian splats more, and which is starting to happen. We're using kind of like ComfyUI more, things like this. The trick thing is there will be a bigger divide between education and the industry for 3 or 4 years, I'd say. Because right now, a lot of the VFX courses being taught are, not always, but are generally being taught by people who used to be in the industry maybe kind of like 7, 8 years ago. So they've kind of been able to keep like teaching Nuke the way they've always done it, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, nothing's changed too much and things like this. But if the minute that pipeline goes, I'd imagine they're all a little worried right now because, that does start to make it a bit redundant, right? That kind of stuff, if that makes sense. So and the thing as well, if I always tell people, like, when they're looking for kind of VFX education, just look at the people who are actually teaching the course and what they've done. That's the best way, and what they've worked on, and are they currently working? That's honestly the best way to judge a course, and look at the students' work. That's the best way. Because yes, you can't throw all these courses under the same category of whether they're worth doing or not. Because some are really good. It's like saying, books are pointless because I read one bad one, right? Well, there's some good ones. It's like such a big category.
Don't read.
Do you see what I mean? Like, that's such a big category that you can't. And it's the same with courses as well. Like, there might be an online course which is bad, or one that's good. It doesn't mean online courses are bad. Yeah. So
I think people have a real fear of taking the wrong one, right? And wasting their money on the wrong one, which is a legitimate fear. Like, I remember it was very hard for me to choose a university to go to because there was only like 2 or 3 that I could even think of. And you can't sit in the class. You can't like know what the curriculum is. So you just have to gamble,
crazy.
Right?
At US, it's like $100,000, right? I mean, that I
was a lot of
disagree
money.
with. That I'd be like, okay, don't spend $100,000 on that.
You're really gambling on it. But you know, at the end of the day, I do have to say, it has always been a niche industry. It's always been, as cliche as it is, it's a privilege to work on it. You're not guaranteed a job. It's the same as saying like, hey, I want to be the next Banksy. It should be really easy. Like, it's a very, very niche. You're, at the end of the day, you're an artist. You're providing stuff for films that are very few. They don't make a lot of films. And it's something that a lot of people want to do, and they'll be cutthroat about it. And you just have to hedge your expectations about that. You have to really, really want it. And if you don't want it that much, consider learning other skills and not doing it, I suppose. But
I think, again, like, practice it cheaply, right? Like, don't don't watch a Disney film and go, I want to be an animator, I'm going to throw $100,000 in. Like, there's a difference between enjoying animation and being an animator, right? And that's something I used to see a lot on games courses, because people would be like, yeah, I love computer games. I think I want to make them first. And those are 2 very different things, if that makes sense. So
people get weeded out
first.
They get weeded out really quickly once the hard stuff starts coming. My education was certainly very interesting. You guys would probably laugh at some of the stories I could tell, but people, everyone wants to do it until the hard times come, and then you find out who really wants to do it because they're still doing it once all that stuff is said and done.
Yeah.
And even the best people that I graduated with, only 20% of them perhaps actually got jobs in the industry, and some of them transitioned to totally different industries. So it's really like a funnel. And it's about luck, it's about perseverance, and hard work, and, do you really want it? And
But not even, like, a big part of the hard stuff is actually hard stuff, but I think another big part of it is not hard stuff, it's just stuff that you didn't expect to be that way. And imagine you think compositing is painting glows and doing stuff like that, and then you find that reality, which is like you're placing nodes, you need a certain knowledge of math, of logic, of
Yeah.
Another aspect that you were not expecting. So, and there will be people that are really fit for that or that enjoy it, especially. And whenever you get someone that enjoys something and another person doesn't enjoy it, then it's completely unbalanced playing field. So, my main recommendation in these situations is usually like, don't do something because you like the output. Do it because you like the process. And for that, you need to find how the process is. I love playing football, for example, and I hate watching football on TV. Like you need to, and with film, for me, it's like the opposite. I don't watch that much film in general. Like I don't really care about it, but I enjoy so much making something that looks cool and making a system to make it so. And that's what drives me, not films. Like if it's both, then amazing. But you need to find like what the process is about, and not what the output is, because you are not working on the output. You're working on the process for many hours a day. So
yeah, and you want to do that as cheaply as possible. Right, so that's the thing, you do it cheaply as possible, right? So you just like take on a bunch of tutorials, and if you're one of the people that's like, right, I couldn't figure out where a fucking button was for 2 hours because in the tutorial they clicked it super quick and I couldn't see it, and then that was the one. That's how you know if you really want to do this, right? Like if that's the thing, and then throw some proper money at it if that makes sense. But
I was just say one other thing too, which is that like don't give up so easily. I think it's so like telling when they think they're stupid for a day and then they say, oh, this is not for me. There's so many times that I thought I was going to quit because I was like, I'm too dumb to do this, or this person does it better than me. Why can't I do this? Or I don't know, this thing is too technical for me. I don't know the math of this thing. Every time I wanted to give up, I would have these dips, when I was a junior or whatever, and things were hard. I couldn't find a job or whatever. And I would always end up at the end of the day saying, well, if I just don't give up, I will beat the person who gives up, and eventually I'll get the job. And I know that's a really bizarre way to think, but it helped me at least, because so many people want to give up. And if I want to give up, I want to do this all my life, basically. And if I want to give up, I'm sure other people do too. And if I just don't, like, the next job might be right around the corner, and I mean, maybe you need to do something in the meantime or something, but I just want to give a little bit of hope to people, don't let the hurdles look bigger than they actually are, I suppose. This is the way to say it. Yeah,
for me, the words that are like prototype things before doing the final version, and lower the cost of iteration, let's say. Like for me, that works on like the macro scale of your life, like big decisions, what you're focusing your career on. Like try to make an iteration that's fast and easy to do, and then it's always easier once you start doing something than if you like make a big wall to jump over. And same with the micro scale, let's say, learning keying, solving this challenge, making a shot. For me, like I'm just noticing this pattern again and again, that if you manage to get a way to test things before you like create a controlled environment that is easier and it's faster to iterate, then that puts you like on the proper direction, and then you can do it properly.
And that is the way, like, that's actually the best way to learn Nuke. So what you do is you think of it like, I'm a tennis player, so I like to think of it like a ball machine. So you just practice 200 forehands, right? Like that's how you practice things that are very competitive. And actually the things that are the most competitive are generally, chances are they've accelerated their speed of learning because they're more incentivized to do so, right? So take those ideas again, like just, I think Adrian's does this very naturally, right? Like he's talking about making things into modules and gizmos, where you can think of the same thing, right? In terms of keying and things like that, right? Like, okay, I'm just going to do making good clean plates on 15 shots, because that's actually the biggest secret to getting good keys. And okay, I'm just going to practice that on 10, 15 shots. Don't care about the final image, just 10, 15 shots of making good clean plates. And you break it down into that kind of thing. And that's the best way to get better at anything. Like ComfyUI, I've been doing the same, by the way. Just like, right, okay, for a while, I was making it so that it wouldn't actually open up a workflow. And I was just building it from scratch every single day. Just so I was like, right, okay, I need to get good. I need to know how to do it. And like, I need to do this. And it's just the repetitions, if that makes sense of that. So yeah. I think that is something, if you're trying to learn, that is the best way to do it, basically. It'll put you way ahead of everyone else, in my experience.
Yeah, that's that experience aspect of things, where it's like, kind of, you've done it so much, you're kind of instinctively doing stuff. Now, there's a risk that you're doing something wrong over and over again and learning the incorrect way.
Exactly. So that's why, again, at the start, you just want to kind of have a play. Don't worry, just enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry if you're doing things wrong. Who gives a shit? Like, just enjoy it. Like, have a play around with all this kind of thing. A bit like the Python thing I was saying. Just ask ChatGPT to make you something and just have some fun with it. It doesn't matter if you're doing it correctly. But then when you start throwing money at it, that's when you need to make sure you're getting taught correctly, because it will screw you up if you start practicing wrong.
Yeah. No. Something I was writing like last year. It's like 99% of what you do is subconscious, like you want it or not. Like it's subconscious. So you really need to put a lot of care on what you train your subconscious on. Like right now, imagine I'm building like a ComfyUI to Nuke bridge. So I'm probably doing it well enough because I spent like many years building Nuke tools. I spent many years doing stuff with Python. Like all of that is integrated. I don't have to think about it. Now I can focus my attention just on what I'm building and why. So it's exactly the same for learning anything. You have to spend like really nail something many, many times. And that makes it so that, especially if you have to focus your attention on, okay, I'm putting this into my subconscious in a proper way. Once it's there, like that's one piece that you're working with all the time for free without thinking about it. And like your skill set is composed of so many subconscious things. Your conscious part is so small at any given moment. You have to really trust your subconscious, and it has to be trained like through specialized iteration. Sorry, that looks like a...
You know that phrase, you're built on the backs of giants before you, or something like that? You're also built on the back of your own experience before you. So it's like, so a lot of things that you're doing today, you know, it's based off of the years of individual projects that you're doing that all add up to that one thing that, okay, now you know enough to do the next thing, and you're going to do it better than you did last time. And so, yeah.
Adrian, so given that we're kind of on like, I don't know how we got here, but given that we're on some like students things like this, are there, what tools, AI tools, obviously me and Tony can give some input as well, but speaking to you, like what AI tools would you say, like, okay, you're doing a VFX course. What do you think? Let's say someone wants to be a comper, and we've just said, actually, look, it's going to be kind of useful going forward to maybe know a bit of other stuff. Would you say kind of Blender and a bit of ComfyUI are the things to maybe kind of play around with? Or are there any other tools that you think people should maybe just get a little bit good at, if that makes sense, that you've been playing around with?
At least in my limited experience, I feel like ComfyUI is a very good way of getting into generative AI. And the reason is the same, that I feel Nuke is a good way to get into image manipulation. It's just you have a tool agnostic workflow, which is a nodal tree that you can load different things into it, and each thing that you load is just a box. And that's it. It's not limited to a specific tool or a specific workflow. So for me, that's a great way to basically, like last year when I didn't know anything about ComfyUI, I was scared of just seeing so many things coming up on LinkedIn every single week. It's like, how am I supposed to even look at it? Well, now with Comfy, it's like, oh, there's an implementation for Comfy. I can just bring a node and test it in 5 minutes, and then I know if it's good enough. So for me, Comfy is like at least right now, a really nice way of being able to have a playground for things. If you're learning comp as well, it's a nodal workflow. It's really easy. Like for compositors, it's that part is super easy. And what I feel is like really, really useful is like understanding what the latent space is in general, like especially for image to image things, like even the magnific, like how is magnific hallucinating all those details, like, and then it's just an image to image, understanding what denoising is, like all of those core concepts of at least nowadays Gen AI. I feel those are going to be really needed for compers in the future, or digital artists, or whatever we call it. I don't know what the word will be for those artists, but in painting, just like, give me the alpha for this person. In-paint the background. I don't care what you put there. Okay, now I need to have some control over, okay, I want to in-paint, but with this perspective, or with this style, or so, like, for me, that's something that complements really well, and that for sure will be used in the near future. So
knowing what CFG means, knowing what denoise means, all of these kind of things are going to be the things that you need to, and also how to upscale, right? Where you're just putting a light bit of noise on things in latent space and then flicking it back again just to add a tiny bit of detail and reducing the CFG. So like all of that kind of stuff is just small little things that are going to be useful going forward.
Yeah. So what I would not waste time on is spending 2 weeks to learn how to prompt. Like for me, that's completely stupid, because each single model that comes up expects a different style of prompting. Like that's not for me a skill that is like, I don't know, I would probably not spend a year now learning how to key, just specializing in keying for a year. Maybe we have keying tools that aid us like a lot in a year, but maybe understand the core concepts of keying. That's useful. I don't know. So it's
Oh,
kind of separating.
By the way, on this as well, there's a guy called Andre Karpathy who used to work for OpenAI and stuff, and he does these. He's fucking genius, this guy. But anyway, he's very, very good at teaching this, and he actually does a few videos, 3-4 hour videos of talking about like tokenization, what tokenization is. It's basically just statistics, basically, is all this stuff, and it's working out, okay, what's the percent of this word coming after this word, and the model should reflect that. And it does make it very like easy. It's a lot easier to get your head around. And he also does a very good one about how he uses AI as well, having like, so he talked about how he prompts knowing how these things work, which is quite useful as well. So again, all this stuff's getting worked out, right? Which is actually why I haven't made any tutorials on it yet, because I'm like, we don't really do it in the industry yet, and the high end stuff. So I don't want to teach anything yet because it's not.
That is something useful. That's something worth repeating. That a lot of this stuff is still very R&D, and that I'm not using like generative AI anything at the moment. We're not really allowed to because of licensing stuff. But it doesn't mean that's not around the corner. It just means that this is not stuff that we're doing on a daily basis. Like I'm still comping, I'm still keying. Adrian, I'm still keying stuff, unfortunately. But it's new to us as well, and it's hard to teach something that is not production ready. So you can teach the knowledge of it, but not like the in practice stuff of it.
Well, and also I always find that people get excited about the new stuff, right? And it's like, no, you don't need an AI video. Just fucking get better at keying. Like that's the thing actually that's going to get you the job, right? Like it's not that I need to know the latest thing. It's no, like get good at the fucking foundations first. Otherwise, this is completely pointless.
Yeah, but if you have to like prioritize. For me, like core concepts, fundamentals, like all of that is so much more important. That's stuff that will not go away. Specific ways of using a specific tool, that will go away very quickly.
Yeah.
I want to mention one other thing, if you don't mind. It's kind of away from the AI topic, but more towards like the junior visual effects school kind of topic. A lot of people are asking stuff like, where do I get footage? Where do I get things to practice? I would really encourage people today in 2025 to go outside with your phone or pull a bunch of friends together and buy a camera or something and just go out and shoot it. You don't need green screen. You need go to your local fabric store and get a green cloth or something like that. You don't need to be the fucking chroma green, thing that they do in Hollywood. That's not where the VFX is going. VFX is going guerrilla style shooting. You're just doing. And so I want to mention a story that a friend of mine told me, or just somebody was telling me a story about how he was getting into it. He was doing all the VFX in his film store for all the people, and he was going one person to the next doing all the VFX. And he started getting really good at like bullshitting the VFX in all these different scenarios, and it ended up leading to him becoming a VFX soup pretty early on, because he knew how to hack all this early, I guess like the difficult scenarios. And so you doing stuff with your friends in a very guerrilla way, it might lead you to skills that you have that a VFX artist today might not have, because they're used to that polished Alexa metadata footage that has all the stuff, but you're used to iPhone footage or, $5,000 camera footage or something, and not $20,000, $50,000 camera stuff. So you might be developing new workflows today with this guerrilla style filming, and it might help you in the next frontier of whatever that like cheaper content model would be. So I would really encourage that. There's nothing that should be stopping you. That really, if you want to practice, just go out and film something. The shittier it looks, the better the practice, because you'll need to do more VFX.
the more prepared you are for actually Hollywood stuff. So.
Yeah, exactly. If you can make something crappy look good, that you filmed yourself, and it's your own idea. I mean, it's just displaying a lot of things. It's displaying your innovation, your outside of the box thinking, what you can do with really crappy footage. Imagine what you could do with great looking footage. So it's instead of just taking the same generic shit that you find online and doing yet another version of the same stuff that everybody's seen, do something yourself. Try it. I mean, you're going to learn a lot of things along the way.
For sure. By the way, going the opposite as well is, sometimes if you've done stuff high end and you've kind of studied that, you can also then apply it to the lower end stuff, right? Because those people aren't going to know about it so much, which is quite handy. So works both ways in regards to that stuff.
Definitely.
But yeah, cameras are, man, what we have right now here is like so much better than $3,000 stuff 15 years ago.
If I had an iPhone in university, I would have been using it.
And it's basically got a LiDAR scanner. Well, not a LiDAR scanner, but it's basically got like an actual 3D scanner on it right nowadays.
Dude,
right?
can't you make the splat, the Gaussian splat stuff from it? Can't you like record
do
stuff?
that in any, but
Yes.
yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, that's so much opportunity there, you know? And you could be the one that's defining workflows of tomorrow. Like, you could be figuring shit out that nobody else knows just by having the challenge that it's not perfect for you and it's not given to you, you know?
Yeah. Well, like with the students right now, like we go out and shoot something with the Blackmagic camera that's really cheap. Like, yeah, same price as a DSLR like 10 years ago. Again.
Yeah.
And with the iPhone and with the LiDAR thing, like you can use an app like Polycam, for example, and then you can scan the room, and then you get a geometry and an OBJ with the texture, and then you can project the 360 HDR on top of it, and like you have so much stuff that I don't know, it's really useful for proper integration.
Or you capture that the Gaussian splat with a camera and then run it for a video-to-video AI thing, and then whatever you want. Like, that's the thing. Like, yeah. And by the way, actually, I think a tip. Obviously, we're maybe giving tips to kind of juniors and people coming up, but a tip to mids and seniors: watch some YouTubers and the kind of amazing pipelines they're just like hacking together right now, because it's sick. Like, what they're doing on a smaller budget is really cool to see, and actually gives you a ton of ideas what you could do in house as well. So
it's really inspirational. It really is, and. Imagine you start doing this and you become really good at this kind of guerrilla style content generation. You might be the next company that's fueling all this stuff in the next wave of this stuff. Wherever this new profits are to be held in the future, you know, you might be in the forefront of that. So there's nothing to be afraid of with that stuff, I think, and you're only going to get better. So yeah,
it's up to the people to drive stuff.
I mean, it is an exciting time, isn't it? I think like we're all finding it. It's a little bit scary, but it's also quite exciting because we are kind of. Everything's up for grabs again, if that makes sense, in terms of pipelines and things like that. So, yeah, Adrian's going to be our overlord in terms of the new pipeline, I think.
Or the chat GPT that you've changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
No, definitely. But yeah, it's just a turbulent time, I think is the best way to say it, right? Like, it's a turbulent time for a whole bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And for a whole bunch of industries.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, my girlfriend's in like tech startups, and you speak to coders, and they're like, "Bro, like ChatGPT is like almost as good as like," and all this kind of stuff. It's a turbulent time in lots of industries.
It is very hard to know what even to transition to if you were to transition into something. So yeah, but all right. Well, I think we should wrap it up on this one. We've gone through, I'm sure there's stuff that we've missed in the industry news, but I think we've kind of covered it, and hopefully G's here. And hopefully we have a guest next time, perhaps. So, all right, everybody, we'll try not to wait 2 more months to do another one. We'll be a little bit sooner than next time. And goodbye. See you. Bye-bye.